Hi again, and welcome back to Beebe Book Buzz. We're really excited to be back after our summer break and into a new season now. This is the program where your Beebe librarians gather to talk about the books that they've been reading recently in hopes to help you find your next great read. And today we have a good part of the reference department with us. We have Bridget Black and Beth Radcliffe and me, Karen Stern. And we're excited to bring you a variety of things, as always. We have a little sci-fi, we have a little romance, we have something that we can't even categorize, but it's all good. So I think we're going to start with romance, and Beth.
Okay. So I really enjoyed this book. It's called A Bollywood Affair by Sonali Dev. And as one might suspect from the cover and the title, it is an Indian romance. Millie, our heroine, has prepared her whole life to be the perfect wife, if only her husband would come and be with her. She married him at the age of 4, and he was 12. And she hasn't seen or heard from him in 20 years. But she fervently believes that he is her one true love. And thinking that a city man like her husband would want an educated woman, she's determined to get one. And she goes so far as to enroll in I think it's Eastern Michigan University, and comes to the States to get a college education. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, her husband's brother, Samir, has been, well, let me tell you a little about him. He is charming, he's sly, he's the #1 heartthrob in Bollywood. So he comes over to Michigan to try to get Millie to sign the divorce papers. Oh. And he befriends her, but he does not tell her who he is.
It's very, very intriguing.
And, but he discovers that she is a wonderful woman, very fiery, passionate. Even though she's this dutiful wife, she's got all this passion within her. Millie, on the other hand, is, well, she's very passionate, as Samir finds out, about her life, about romance, about her big ideas. And Dev does a really good job in developing that in her, and also developing Samir, that Samir, even though he's sly and smug, she's able to show that he's got a really big heart, that he is a genuinely nice person underneath his facade of being a player. One other thing I want to tell you about Millie is that she's a weeper. At the drop of the hat, she weeps. So she's happy, she's sad, she gets the right ice cream, she's going to start crying. And I thought that that was really going to annoy me, that I was not going to be able to make it through the book. But I think Dev does such a good job. She makes it charming. She makes it funny, heartfelt. I mean, she does a great job at developing those characters.
So she's a writer of character.
Yes.
She writes for people who like character.
And that goes as far to the secondary characters as well.
Oh, that's good.
They're really well fleshed out. She has a drama queen roommate who's really fun, and her crazy over-the-top family. And then Samir has, she describes Samir's mother and his brother, the one that she's supposed to be married to. And they're both, the love that they all have is really well portrayed.
So it's got depth, this one.
Yeah.
It's not just a...
And so if they're Indian, how does that play out? Is that, obviously it's important for aspects of the story.
Absolutely, and just as she does a good job with character, I think she does a great job with the imagery and with the scenes, with the setting. She gives you a real sense of Indian culture, and she uses a lot of colloquial language, which gives it an authentic feeling. I don't think you get lost if you're not Indian. I think she has a good balance to it.
And is there a cultural clash because she's in the States?
No, she really doesn't go into it that much. It's much more Indian-based, and her roommate is Indian American. there's a little bit there, but not much. You know what I'd say? It's more a clash of she's from a small little traditional village versus going to, even though it's a little place in Michigan, it's still bigger than
it's the big wide world.
It's the big wide world. It's America. It's not as small as the world she came from.
Well, and it would seem like Samir being in Bollywood and all of that would be a lot more sophisticated than her.
Yeah, and I think she does a great job of showing you that. I mean, she said, I told you in the beginning, she's trying to impress him, thinking that her husband is an educated man, a worldly man, and it's true. They are much more worldly, he and his brother, than she is.
Right. So it's kind of the romance trope, which is country girl meets sophisticated guy. That is working off that, but it's a whole. It sounds like it's got lots of layers to it.
Yeah, and there's also that he's lied to her, and that he's this well-known, sophisticated. You know, so it's she plays with a lot of tropes, but I think she does it really well.
Good. And it sounds like it might be funny too.
It is. I mean, the roommate provides a lot of humor, but there's a lot of that she is so naive.
Right.
They play a lot on that, and he's kind of laughing at her behind
her back. Yeah.
Behind her back, and but she's charming, and I told you about her weeping, right? I found the weeping ended up being charming. And I love that word with this book, you know. And she's very enjoyable, and so you end up laughing at her when she's crying some of the time. And at the crazy family, they have a Bollywood wedding, and she describes that and how there's all these jewelry around and lights, and it's like a Bollywood film in that part.
Sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun. I do want to say there is some backstory, some sad backstory to Samir and to Millie, but that's all in service to the romance. And overall, like we were saying, it's very heartwarming. It's light. I guess it would make a great beach read. You know?
Yeah. Or a great read by the fire in the fall or the winter.
That's true. That's true.
Anytime you need your spirits lifted, sounds like a good one.
Yeah. I do have a couple of, if you enjoy this, you might try Alicia Ray. She's not Indian, she's Bengali, and she's Bengali American. So there's not as much of the culture in it, and it also has supernatural, which this one does not. But it's the same.
Also romance, though?
Oh yeah, romance. Sorry, definitely romance, and also upbeat.
Yeah.
And one other, and that's Alyssa Cole. So she's not from East Asia. She's African American, but that has more the element of somebody keeping a secret about who they are. The hero in that one, again, doesn't say who he is, keeps it a secret. And what was I going to say about it? Well, it's just...
And which are we talking about, one of the Duke titles?
Oh yeah, that's what it was. It's the Princess Theory, which is part of the
Princess in Theory. Oh, yeah.
Princess in Theory,
Princess in Theory, yeah.
Which is part of the Reluctant Royals series that she's done. So
the first of that.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good series for if you like the kinds of things that you're talking about. There's a whole series of those, Reluctant Royals. Yeah.
Yeah, she has that series, and she has other series as well. So
she's a hot topic right now. There's a lot of Alyssa Cole out there. Yeah. Anything you want. Okay.
So that was Hollywood Affair by Sonali Dev.
Bollywood Affair. A Bollywood Affair.
What did I say?
Hollywood.
Oh, excuse me. Bollywood.
A Bollywood Affair. Okay, and from romance we move to sci-fi with maybe a little romance thrown in.
A little romance in it. I would say a fair amount. So I read Polaris Rising by Mihalik. Let me hold it up. So it's the first of a trilogy, and it's a rollicking space adventure involving daring escapes, multiple rescues, a little dash of romance, and of course galactic intrigue. So the main character
Sounds like quite a ride.
It is. It's a real ride, I will say. So the main character is Ada von Hassenberg.
Wow.
Who grew up a member of one of the most powerful families in the galaxy. But she's been running from an arranged marriage for the past 2 years, undercover. Though I will say she has not given up most of her comforts. She left with a fair amount of secret money, so she's been doing okay for herself. But when a crew of mercenaries hired by her father catch up to her, her only hope of escape is to team up with the dangerous criminal who is already locked in their brig, Marcus Locke, the notorious Devil of Fornax Zero, rumored to have killed his entire platoon in a rebellion.
Ooh, dark.
Yeah, so I think we can see where this might be going.
Yes.
So Ada was raised essentially as a princess. So she's a space princess, we could say. With all the privilege and restriction that entails, she has a highly developed public persona that she puts on in situations where she needs to impress or sometimes make people underestimate her by being a different person. But she has a core of who she is that's not that person. She also has quite a few... she is very adept at fighting. She had a tutor in fighting, and she has lots of skills, a wide range of skills that allow her to get out of most situations. So she's been surviving on her wits and the help of her family members who still speak to her since she's left. And when she meets Locke, she needs his help to escape from the ship. She knows that the only way she's going to get out of here, this crew of mercenaries, is with his help. She doesn't entirely trust him, but she does feel an instant connection and also attraction to him. So the book is in her first-person point of view. She tells the story, and Locke remains a mystery. But I will say he's not. He doesn't lie to her. He just keeps things a secret, and she makes assumptions that he doesn't answer. So he's as a character, he's actually quite trustworthy, though he doesn't always tell everybody the whole truth.
A little enigmatic.
Yes. And he lets her make assumptions, and then he...
And fall all over herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, I will say, sometimes you would think a character like that who's very an alpha male in this kind of situation would be high-handed or would stop her from doing things or be like, I know best. And he doesn't do that. He doesn't really second guess her, and he listens to her when she has more experience. So it does feel like an equal relationship in that way. So they have this room, they meet, and they escape from the ship, and then they're on this adventure. And through the course of that adventure, they fall in love, but also get involved in a potential war between her family and another one of they're called the High Houses, and they run what essentially runs the entire galaxy. It's called the Consortium. So there's 3 houses. It's the Van Hassenbergs, House Rockhurst, and House Yamada. So you kind of have different, different cultures and different, and they live on Earth. Eventually they do go back to Earth. Most of this book takes place not on Earth, but they do go back to Earth to sort of experience the courts. There's some court intrigue. It has a lot of plot, but it actually carries it through pretty well. You find out the secret of Locke, what it means to be the Devil of Fornax Zero, what that is, and why he's made some of his choices and why Ada's made her choices. And I really enjoyed it. I think they're very good characters and they carry through really well. And the overarching plot of the war between the families is hinted at and intriguing. You're kind of going to learn more. It is the first of a trilogy.
Yeah,
Right,
okay,
yeah. I was going to say you're going to learn more in the next book, which is coming out very, very soon.
Yes, it comes out in October, and
Do you remember the title?
it's called Aurora Blazing.
That's right. Aurora
And I will say, so the romance in this is settled in this book. The relationship between Ada and Locke is finished, and the next book is not from her point of view. It's from her sister, who you meet in this book's point of view, and that's also going to be a romance with a different hero, obviously.
Okay.
So while
That would make it very hard if it were the same hero.
that would be a kind of a problem. So while it's a series, the events are continuing on. The romance is settled. This has a happily ever after, if that is something that
that you're interested in.
That
So
you're
it's a
interested
true
in.
romance but also a whole lot more.
Yeah, but
I
also
mean,
a whole lot more. So if you want to read a romance, this is a good sci-fi romance to give that to you. But if you are interested in space battles and military sci-fi, that's also in here. So it has two ways to go.
Right.
I think if you had read and I'm going to butcher this name, I'm sorry if you're a big fan, but the Vorkosigan books by Louise McMaster Bujold, that's sort of similar to this in that there's military sci-fi and romance in them. Mm-hmm. I also think if you are a fan of, say, a Mercy Thompson by Patricia Briggs, you might want to branch out to a different genre than urban fantasy. This might also be a good place to go because it's sci-fi, but first-person point of view, strong female characters, interested in women.
So sorry, Beth, is the tone, would you say it's a light tone?
I would say it's mostly fairly light, especially because Ada's voice is detached. I don't know, detached isn't necessarily the word, but it has sort of a wryness to it. Like since it is her first person point of view, her voice comes through very strongly, and she has kind of a funny way of looking at things. Right. So it has a light tone, even when quite serious things happen. She kind of can go through them.
Yeah, because I was thinking about Jemisin N.K. Jemisin as a possible read-alike, but it sounds like this one sounds a little bit more lighthearted than Jemisin,
I would say
which is very like hard-hitting and
that's why
intense.
I thought about, say, your like Becky Chambers or Anne Lecky's, and I think those are a little bit more serious than this is. If you read sci-fi, more humorous sci-fi, let's say like Catherine Valente, this might be more on your angle.
What
too.
about J.D. Robb? Is she too? I mean, because she's got the futuristic type stuff and the romance.
She's more magic, I think.
Yeah, and I think those are not. This is much more space than that, because I think there's future without space, and this is space.
Sci-fi.
Like there's a lot of space in this, like a lot of spaceships and sci-fi and
battles and
battles
stuff like
and
that.
The battles are. I think there's more battles to come, but definitely there is some spaceship battling and maneuvering in it. So that's definitely.
All right, so Polaris Rising. And another one to come.
Yes.
And it's a trilogy, so
it's a trilogy. Yeah. Yes, the third one doesn't have a title yet.
Yeah.
So
okay. All right, and then I said we were going to talk about something uncategorizable, and that is my favorite read of the summer, which is this little book, only just over 200 pages, and small to boot. It's not even a big book, called Lanny by Max Porter, who's a British author. So to set the scene, I kind of want you to imagine a typical kind of English village, like something you might find in an Anthony Horowitz mystery or Midsummer Murders or Broadchurch, one of those British, kind of typical British village. It's a commuter town, but it's out, it's out in the countryside. It's got bordered by woodland, which is very important in the story. And there's a new family who's moved in, Lanny's family. So Lanny is the boy in the book. And they're a little bit suspect because they're new, because, it's a village and you wouldn't want to trust anyone too much. But quite typical in certain ways. He's the commuter. He's the one who goes in and out of the city and to his sort of job in finance. And she is an ex-actress who now writes fairly gruesome murder mysteries at home. So she's, with Lanny at home. And then Lanny, their son, who is this quirky, imaginative, free-spirited kind of sprite who roams the woods at will and is often off, nobody quite knows where. He's a total enigma to his buttoned-up dad and the love of his mother's life. I mean, not that his dad doesn't love him, but he just doesn't quite get him because he's just a little, some would say odd and others would say, imaginative. So those are our core characters. And if you look at the trajectory of this book's plot, in some ways it's really ordinary. It's like you meet the characters and some of the secondary characters. There's one other character, Pete, who is an older guy who is also an outsider. He's an artist and he's come to retire in the village. But he's a loner, and Lanny's parents ask him if he would teach Lanny to draw, and so he and Lanny form a bond. So that's another really important relationship in the book. But so you're introduced to these characters, the primary and the secondary. You see some of the characters who live in the village, the kind of witchy woman and the nasty next door neighbor, and those people you get introduced to. See them in their lives, but then there's a tragedy, and Lanny goes missing. So this is not, I'm not giving much away because...
So the tragedy is not that he goes missing, there's a tragedy and he goes missing? No,
that is the tragedy.
That
he
is
goes
the tragedy,
missing.
okay.
Yeah, and there's the drama of the search, and there's the news coverage, there's the whole, everything you expect in a sort of psychological thriller, really. It's, right? Yeah. But to begin the story, we are introduced to something very ancient and mysterious living in the wood, really part of the wood outside the village, sorry. And you can kind of imagine, you can get an idea of, sort of a green man type figure, a spirit whose name is Dead Papa Toothwort, and he's actually the first voice you hear in the book. And he spends a lot of time listening to the sounds of the village. And one of the quirks of this book is how that looks on the page. So I think you can see the sort of how the typeset is. The words come in and out off the page, on and off the page, like little tendrils of sound, sort of drifting in and out. You're getting like snippets of conversation that float out of houses and shops, and really typical stuff. I can, clean forgot milk, talking to old Peggy, every last mouthful, weird time to be alive. How are your knees? It's an astroturf burn, not cancer. Autumn's a brutal surgeon. Dad's livid, more gin than tonic. So, it's just like all these little things. And Papa Toothwort, he just laps this stuff up and he feeds on it. It's his kind of lifeblood, the sounds. He calls it his English symphony, and it feeds him. And he's a shapeshifter. He kind of he's a fence post, and then he's a flying bird, and then he's a presence in the leaf mold. He's just this very mysterious, mystical character. And the last thing you need to know about Papa Toothwort is that he especially loves Lanny. Okay, so you know that from quite early on, and you know that there's something going to happen. So this is this mix of magic and mystical with really ordinary things happening, like people commuting and people parenting, and that's the kind of the real. That's why it's so completely impossible to categorize this book, because you're putting all of these things together in a way that really, really works. I can't tell you how compelling this book is. Like, it sounds bizarre, but it's just like it's a page turner. You're like, what happens? What happens? So you've got this suspense and foreboding of Papa Toothwort. It's almost, I would say, almost has a horror-like quality, just quiet horror. I mean, there's no blood and guts or anything like that, but it just has that feeling, that suspense, like, oh no. The mystery, what's going to happen to Lanny? Is he going to be found? Which is the page turner. Porter's writing is another big attraction. It's beautiful. He does character really well. I'm going to read you a tiny bit here. In the beginning, the chapters they're almost like little scenes. You can almost imagine a movie scene. It feels like that. And, they're just titled Lanny's Mom, and then Lanny's Dad, and Lanny, and just so you know whose point of view it's from. And you build up these scenes, and you get this really, they're very broad brushstroke, but they give you these characters that you come to completely care about. So Lanny's mom is sitting and clicking on her computer, writing her gruesome murder thing, where somebody's blood, brains are spread all over something. And in walks Lanny, and she shuts the computer because she doesn't want him to see what she's writing. Hello, Poppet. I thought you were playing football with Archie and Toby. Nope, got bored. Can I tell you a secret? I'd love that. Yes, please. I almost told Pete, but I wanted it to be a surprise, and I didn't want to tell Dad because he might be cross. Right? And what makes you so sure I won't be? You're never very cross. I could start now. Go on, what is it? I'm building a bower. A what? Like bowerbirds do. I'm building a camp full of all the best stuff I've found, like a tiny museum of magic things. Ah, yes, I know what you mean. In the garden? Have you started? Nope, somewhere secret. I've been working on it for ages. Is Archie helping? Nope, no way. And the bowerbird makes this for his lady, right? To impress a girl. May I ask who the lucky female Lanny bird is? No, it's for everyone. It's for the whole village. And anyone who finds it, it's to make them fall in love with everything. It's my biggest project so far. So that's Lanny, that just gives you Lanny. And that's these little scenes and how she feels about him. And at the end of the scene, she kind of realizes, as she goes back to typing her mystery, that he is really her muse. He's what inspires her to write these gruesome things. But so he you get all these characters painted very simply but beautifully so that you know them. And that extra layer of atmosphere and foreboding with Papa Toothwort, and it all kind of comes together into a book which I would say would be for fans of both magic realism and psychological thrillers, for fantasy and for maybe even like Jodi Picoult lovers. It's I've never really read anything quite like it. So if you want to try something a little different and very wonderful this year, try Lanny by Max Porter.
It reminds me of The Murr Wife.
Oh yeah.
Because there's ordinary life, there's lots of different voices, there's
a little magic.
There's definitely magic. You're not quite sure what the story is with one of the boys. He's he's not an ordinary boy. So, and he's listening. They're always listening. They're on top of the mountain and they're listening to what is going. When I say they're listening, it's a mother and son.
Right.
And they're always listening to what's going on down below.
Right.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
When I know the typeface is different. Does that reflect in how in the narrative? Because it seems more straightforward and not. But that's why I'm like.
It's only that's only what dead Papa Toothwort is hearing. Those only happen when he's in the picture.
Voice.
Yeah.
When it's mostly what he's hearing, and you get that all through the book. So that's this other. It's like setting the scene of the sounds of this village as opposed to what it looks like really. I mean, or which is what you would traditionally do, right? So it's very oral, a listening kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's like he's like he's disruptive, and the rest of it is sort of.
He is both of the yes.
I'm saying like if you took him out, you might have this. Very normal,
yes.
very standard narrative, but with him, he disrupts that narrative.
He disrupts the narrative and actually the plot. He's what the plot turns on.
Yes, yeah.
And you never. I'm not going to say too much more because I don't want to give anything away. And I think we're running close to time. So I don't know, Beth. You had a couple of things that you read this summer. If you just want to mention them real quick.
Well, there's the 10th Muse by Catherine Chung, and that's about a mathematician, and it's about, she's half Asian American, and all the obstacles she faces. It's historical, it's about math. If you want to skip the math, I did, you can. So but it's a really wonderful story. It involves World War II, so it has historical stuff in it. There's a mystery. It's really well written. So
right. Is that a literary kind of?
Yeah.
Literary quality writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So 10th Muse.
By Catherine Chung.
Catherine Chung. So a recommendation there.
Yeah.
And one more.
And then I've got one more romance. That's called Star-Crossed by Minnie Darke.
Okay.
Darke with an E on the end. And that's about. That in some ways, it's Australian. It goes all over the place in some ways because it's these two main characters, a man and a woman, and she's a writer for a magazine, and she edits the horoscope part because the man who she has known from a child and she's in love with, but he doesn't know he's in love with her, so she alters the horoscope so that he will come to realize he's in love with her because he's very addicted to the horoscope.
Right.
So
this
madness
is another,
ensues.
Right.
But in between, she goes the way she narrates it is through the horoscope figures. Leo, Scorpio in order.
Oh, fun.
And in between that, there are other little snippets of stories that are romances. So
Right.
it's really sweet. It's cute. And if I listened to it, and so I got the Australian accent, which was really fun too. Although I have to say, it's a little confusing with all the names and all the different stories. It might be better off just being read rather than listened
right.
to.
All right, so a couple of other. It's been a romance kind of day.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. But that's pretty much all the time we have. So we will say goodbye for now, and we will be back next month with more on Beebe Book Buzz.